His life, and this is the song. It's referred to as a shira, which he's communicating to Klal Yisrael, and it's vital for their understanding of the value of what they have and to maintain themselves. Haazinu Hashemayim v'adabeiro, v'sishma oretz imrei fi. Let heaven be attentive to what I say, what I speak, and the earth should listen to the words of my mouth. Yarov katoch kamoto likhi. It will penetrate like rain. Likhi. My lekach, the Torah will penetrate you like rain penetrates. When it rains, it penetrates. The rain penetrates the ground, penetrates what grows. Tizal katalim rosi. It will flow, my word will flow like dew. Rain comes down with a level of force. Dew just comes about. It's on the surface. We find the Torah is referred to as lekhi, my acquisition. Ki lekach tov nosat lochem, Torah siyat azovu. I've given you my good commodity. Lekach tov, don't abandon it. That's what Hashem says to us. Once mentioned in Chofetz Chaim, who refers to the Torah as the good commodity. So the Chofetz Chaim explains, you have a commoner, and he has something which he values very much, and he doesn't have very much, but he values very much. The commoner may value it as being something special, but the wealthy man has no value whatsoever. But because regarding his economic state, it's the best he has, it's something special. But the wealthy man who has so much more is considered nothing, has no value whatsoever. The wealthy man, he has wealth. But what about the minister, who's a minister in the palace of the king? The minister has access to another dimension of wealth. So what the wealthy man values in terms of an item, his artifacts, to the minister doesn't mean anything. And what the minister considers special and valuable to the king, it's not on the same level as what's in the treasury of the king. And what about what the king has, the mortal king? What he considers precious and valuable, to the lowest echelon angel, what's its value? Has no value. And what the lowest angel values to be special, there are many levels of angels. The great angels consider it to be ordinary. The greatest of angels, the Chayus HaKodesh, which are the highest echelon of angel right below the heavenly throne, what they consider to be special. To Hashem, nothing means anything. God is infinite. So God, the infinite being, says, you know what I'm giving you? Lekach Tov. To me, this is the ultimate. This is the ultimate commodity. So if he's telling us this is the ultimate, how should we value it? It's something, it's not to be imagined. It's innate value. This is God's wisdom. And he says, don't abandon it. This is your gift. This is the basis for our relationship. Because we can only develop and be spiritualized to reflect the spirituality of God, to be able to cleave to him. We only cleave through the Torah itself. Through the Lekach Tov Nosad Lechem, therefore don't abandon it. Because if you want to have a relationship with me, the only way we're able to meet the objective of existence is only through the Torah. I mentioned many times the name of the Ramchal. What is the purpose of existence? So man should be the beneficiary of the ultimate level of good. That's why God created man. Based on your choice, if you choose to do the right thing, then you're deserving of the ultimate good. What's the ultimate good? To cleave to the source of everything, which is God. So what level of development, of refinement, does one have to have? Spiritual refinement. A spirituality which has relevance to what God is. What brings about that result? Only God's wisdom. That's Lekach Tov. That's why it's the ultimate good. Because the only way you could cleave to that good, the goodness which is the ultimate, which is the infinite, which is the source of all existence, is the Torah. Therefore Hashem says, Lekach tov nosad lochem. I've given you something which is one of a kind. It even surpasses angels. Therefore, al tazovu, don't abandon it. Because if you abandon that, then you have no relevance to purpose any longer. You know, different than the animal walking the terrestrial level of existence. Not more than that. But if you want to reflect what we call the tselem Elokim, God's image, and to atmat vekim, to be cleave to God, chaim kulchem, to have eternity, to be part of eternity, then you have to engage in that lekach, in that commodity. So yarov kamota likhi, it penetrates like rain. My lekach, my acquisition, which it penetrates you. It goes to the core. It spiritualizes you at an unlimited capacity. Tizal katalim rosi. So we'll see. So if it penetrates to such a degree, what does it mean? It flows like dew, my words. So over here, the Sifarnu explains, we find many Jews have different capacities. A person has a greater capacity, a greater appreciation. It's the Yarav Kamot Likhi. It brings the person to a level of understanding which is profound. As the rain penetrates, and as a result activates a level of growth which gives meaning and value to the potential, to become, actualize the potential, Yarav Kamota Likhi. The Torah itself has that same ability. What about the person who has a limited capacity? Just as the dew has a value, although it's only on the surface, it doesn't absorb deeply into the ground. But even my imrosi, anything you study of Torah, even on the simple level, gives you a level of appreciation, and that appreciation brings about a spiritualization. So Sifarno says, Hine tarosi hi tarof v'tovo b'shetef kemota lemivinim. It will come in a deluge to those who understand it. Hamuchonim lekabel mabua mekor chochma. The ones who have the capacity and who have the orientation to receive the source of wisdom. Tizal katalim rosi v'nosenes gam kifian nigle mimeno. Even according to very simple understanding of the Torah, it gives an understanding even to the ordinary people. Even though it's something relative to what it is, it's minuscule. Tovim ot katal. It has enormous value, no different than the dew. The Gemara tells us in Tainis that the world cannot exist without dew. There always has to be dew. So that is a prerequisite for the continuation of existence. That's a must. Rain, you have a drought, rains, it doesn't rain. Dew, there has to be continuous dew. So even for the ordinary Jew who has a very limited capacity, just reading the simple meaning of what the Torah is, Shemeyosu mu'etes, although it's something which is only to a small degree, he tova ma'od ketal. Ba'ofen shi kesirim alei deshe shamaskilim yabitu niflos mimenu. The people who have true understanding, who they comprehend it, and they appreciate its profoundness, they will see wonders. They'll be able to see wonders through the Torah. Ukreviv maliyeshev shegam hahedyotos. Even the ordinary people, yiknu bo eze mada, they'll acquire some degree of understanding. Lahake et boborom bofinma. They'll be able to recognize the Maker. Imkain atem Yisrael shekipaltamoso. So the Jews, we have many levels of Jews. You have Jews who are more advanced, less advanced. But if you all engage in my Torah, because every one of you have another level of appreciation of who God is, and that level of appreciation is based upon the depth of your understanding of Torah, therefore, Kishem Hashem Ekro, therefore when I call the name of God, Hovo Godel Elkeinu, since every one of us, because of our exposure to Torah, has some degree of appreciation who God is, so therefore when I call His name, therefore we have to extol His name, every one of us, based on our own understanding of who He is. What is the basis for reverence when you revere someone? Reverence is based upon recognizing who that other individual is, who that entity is. The greater your understanding of the value of that person or the ability of that person, you will revere to a greater degree. I'll give you an example. In Hebrew, the word v'yoresim elokecho is a mitzvah to fear God. What is fear? Fear could be yiras ha'onesh. God could punish. You do the right thing, rewarded. You do the wrong thing, you're punished. That's a very minimal level. Rambam says in Shmona Prokim, his essay on the last chapter of Chelek of Sanhedrin, which speaks about who has a share in the world to come, who does not have a share in the come, he says that level, he says, is for children and for women. Meaning, women, he means people who aren't sufficiently learned, who have an appreciation, and they don't have the depth of understanding who God is. So therefore, why do you behave? You behave because you have to respect the law. Because you understand if you transgress, there's going to be a consequence. So that keeps people instead. However, a person with a deeper understanding, that's called awe. That's reverence. A person's reverence has awe. But factually, reverence and fear are one and the same. The only difference is, where does the fear emanate from? From the consequence, from fear of punishment? Or it's because you recognize the person to be something so special, and therefore you have fear. Awe is fear. Now the question is, why, if you have awe, is there fear? You fear. You fear a king, although the king is not going to harm you. I always give the example, a person is a physicist, exceptional physicist, and now he's never met Dr. Einstein. And it's the first time he's slightly afraid. He's fearful. First meeting, first engagement, he's afraid. Einstein's not going to hurt you. So what are you afraid of? What causes fear? Awe can cause fear. Now, what is the basis for a person's sense of being? The basis for anybody's sense of being is your sense of accomplishment. That gives you a sense of self. You know what my value is? I'm accomplished. Why am I accomplished? I'm a good person. I've done acts of kindness. I feel that I invested my life properly. And therefore, that gives myself a sense of being. That is who I am. What happens? You invest your life and then you realize your whole investment is worthless, has no value. And you come to that realization. So what are you? You're nothing. You're nothing. When a person feels he's nothing, then there's fear. That immediately engenders fear within the person. Do you know, I am. I am gives a person a sense of confidence. He feels secure. The moment you're stripped of that confidence, because you have no sense of being, then fear immediately seeps into every aspect of the person's emotion. A person feels he's an accomplished physicist. He feels accomplished. But as much as he feels accomplished, when he stands in the presence of Einstein, he feels negated. The moment you feel negated, then you're minimized. When you're minimized, what happens? What am I? I'm nothing. What I valued as my accomplishment versus the man I'm in his presence, I'm nothing. The moment you have a sense of nothingness, then there's fear. That's why reverence engenders fear for that reason. Although it's not fear of punishment, but it's fear of because I have no sense of being. You're stripped of your being. Because whatever you are, that gives you a sense of confidence and presence. That's the idea. So therefore, a person could fear God. You don't understand who God is. Your understanding of God is He could punish you. But you have no understanding, or you cannot internalize His being, His dimension of being. He's there, I'm here. But one thing I know, if I cross that line, He could hurt me. So it's not because you're negated, it's because He can harm you. But the person who has a deeper understanding who God is, the person who has a profound, because he has a broader, deeper level and capacity to comprehend Torah, and through Torah, you're able to internalize God. So now it's no longer because what He could do to me, I understand who He is. It's not only intellectual understanding, you internalize who He is. You have a sense of His being. The moment you sense His being, then you're negated. I am nothing. I'm nothing in His presence. The moment you're stripped to that level, that I'm negated, I'm nothing. So what am I? Whatever my accomplishment, it's nothing. My wisdom. Kol hachachomim ka'ain lefonecho, kivli mado, nevonik kli haskel, is brilliant as you are in the presence of God. Your brilliance is not nothing. It's nonsense. Every aspect of our existence is nonsense. Although we know it, any person who believes in God knows that, but we don't sense it. You have to sense it. What gives you the capacity to sense it? That's the study of Torah. The study of Torah, that's Yarov Kamoto Likri. If the Torah penetrates you, and just as water, when the rain comes down with force, it penetrates and therefore allows it to grow. Whatever it penetrates, the Torah, if it penetrates us, it gives us that sense of godliness. And when you have that sense, you internalize that sense, then you negate it. Whatever you are is brilliant. Whatever your accomplishment is, it's meaningless. Liya kesef liya zov. A person's wealthy, phenomenally wealthy. Could you imagine a person is endowed with wealth, and the person who gives him wealth continues to remind him, you know why you have that money? Because I just put it in your account. And I could remove it from your account. Don't forget I put it there. What does this person feel? Feels like a beggar. Could he feel that he's wealthy? If nobody knows that he's a beneficiary, somebody gave him something, so he doesn't see himself dependent. He's fully dependent. Could a person pride himself when he's fully dependent? And the source of that wealth is continuously being transmitted, but it can be stopped or withdrawn any time. How could you feel about yourself? So if you would say, Liya kes, Liya zov, Hashem says, it's all mine. It's all mine. It's not you. So how could you have a sense of anything? The answer again, I know it, but factually, I'm in control. That's what you think. Because you can't internalize the reality that God is in control. You only have that sense only if you're humbled. You're humbled through Torah, because Torah gives you that understanding and that reality of who God is. I'll give you an example. A person who's a true Talmud Chacham, not using the word Torah scholar. Torah scholar is, for the ones who write at the bottom of the Hertz Chumash for Sansino. Those are Bible scholars. Talmud Chacham, and a person has the privilege to meet Rav Moshe Feinstein Zeich Tzaddik Livrocha, who had the whole Torah on his fingertips. Rav Moshe Feinstein was a man that was barely 5 feet tall, wore a long black coat, a hat, and he was very humble. And a person knows all about who he is, what he is. But the man is a financial tycoon. Never opened a Jewish book, but he's Jewish, and he meets. I want you to meet this great rabbi. He shakes his hand, meek handshake. Doesn't look so impressive. So who did you introduce me to? What is this man? The man doesn't even know how to approach, to appreciate, to relate even to what this man represents. This man is a giant. He doesn't understand what giant is. You own 1 million acres in Texas, and you have oil wells, and you have a stock portfolio, and you have financial holdings. That's something to be impressed. That's what he understands. But to this man, all that means nothing. Nothing. Its value is purely to facilitate spirituality. But what does this man understand? He's an intellectual human being. That's where it begins. That's where it ends. So could he appreciate it? But a person who has a spiritual orientation, he has appreciation of what Torah is, and he sees this man, his knowledge is endless, profound. On top of that, he's devout, and he's a holy man. And what he forgot, you will never learn for the rest of your life. So how do you feel in his presence? What's my sense of accomplishment? There's awe. Not that he's will chas v'sholem embarrass you to any degree. He won't embarrass you. He'll treat you in the most kind way. And you'll sense his humility. Doesn't make a difference. But whatever I am, I'm nothing in his presence. And you have that sense. So when you stand, the Gemara tells us that what is the Amidah? What is the obligation of tefillah? You stand, Omid l'fnei melech. We have an audience with God. If we relate to what God is, we immediately negate it. You cannot stand in his presence. You're ashamed to stand in his presence. But do we have shame? maybe on Yom Kippur, maybe for a moment, if we're touched in a certain way because of the setting of the, whatever it is, the service, the, what we call the nusach, the melodies, whatever it is, the people's involvement, the whole environment is spiritualized, maybe at that moment you can have a sense to some degree. And you feel humbled, and you feel shame for what we did, and therefore we confess and make a proper vidui, confession, which is Yom Kippur, maybe. What's reverence dependent on? It's your capacity to internalize who God is. That's the degree that you revere Hashem. But the simple, ordinary person, he has no idea. God, of course, God, the Creator. But in terms of fear, fear is he could hurt me. He could punish me. Therefore, I must behave. It begins then, that's where it ends. We find by the last plagues in Mitzrayim, so God says to Moshe, you must tell over to your children, your grandchildren, how I made a mockery of Egypt. You must tell them. This is before the plague of Arbe, locust, Choshech. You must tell them. I made a mockery of them. Because after the hail destroyed everything, it says the wheat and spelt crop was left. So originally, Paro had believed God is the supreme being. He says if he's supreme, why did he destroy the spelt and wheat crop? Evidently, you see, he's not. Evidently, there's a deity of the wheat and there's a deity of the spelt. But little did he know that Hashem only left it so the locust should come and have what to eat. That your only sense of security will be taken from you. And which is what happened. And therefore he said immediately, remove this death from us. Because this was their so-called their security blanket. The moment the locust came. So I want you to tell over to your children how I made a mockery of Egypt. And what God is gloating that he made a mockery of Egypt. What is the lesson we have to share with our children? What? We say in the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Mamlich Melochim v'lo hamlucha. God coordinates kings, but who's the king? He's the king. You understand? Whatever Paro is, he's the monarch of the most advanced civilization, the mightiest civilization. But why is he where he is? Because God put him there. That's it. You know, it's like a puppeteer. God pulls the strings. And every move and every nuance of his behavior, God is pulling the strings. So he's only in a position of power because God gave him the power. He may believe he's independent. It's around what he believes. So if you understand how God made a mockery of Egypt, of Paro, this is something you stood in awe. These were your masters. But you see, why were they your masters? Because God put them in a position they should be your masters. But the moment he says it's come to an end, now your masters become your slaves. They're beholden to you, and they're intimidated by you, and they're afraid of you, and they beg you to take their personal effects before you leave Egypt. You ask for one, take two, just leave. So by understanding how I made a mockery, it's internalizing the reality of who is God. Not to make a mockery, just to make a mockery, to belittle the people. To understand what's power. Who's the one who has the power? Who's the one who gives power? Or gives prestige, or gives anything? Liya Kesel Liazov. Everything is made. It's not you. Never. Ezeu Gibor. It's not the one who's born with tremendous physical strength. Even as Shimshon Gibor. HaKovish Yitzro. The one who controls his inclination. Why? Because that's free choice. Everything is predestined except free choice. So HaKovish Yitzro, that you're reigning on your inclination, that's you. That's God gave you that ability. That's your domain. Any other area, that's his domain. That's not your domain. So therefore, it's the Arav Kamot Delikhi. If you absorb the lekach, which is the ultimate spiritualization, then you see the profoundness of God. But even the ordinary person who doesn't have that, but still, you're touched. And if you're touched by Torah, you have some degree of wisdom. You have a sense of godliness. Therefore, Ki Shem Hashem Ekro, When I call the name of God, Hobo go to Leilukenu. At whatever level you are, you extol God. We say at the Yam Suf, even the maidservant said, Zeke levad veu. Masharosh, it was so profound. The revelation at the Kriyas Yam Suf, splitting of the sea, even the maidservant. She saw things which she was totally overwhelmed with. And therefore, Zeke levad veu, she extolled God at a level even Yecheskel Navi. They couldn't express because he never saw such a level of revelation. We'd mentioned last week, the Maral of Prague says something phenomenal. The Maral of Prague explains that when Moshe was sent to Egypt to be the Redeemer, so he had to present his credentials to Klal Yisrael. So Hashem says you should say to them, Hashem Elokei Yisrael Shlachani Aleichem. Hashem, the God of Israel, has sent me upon you to redeem you. The name which is used is Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's the unpronounceable name, which we're not even permitted to pronounce the letter Kei. You say Yud Kei Vav Kei. What is the significance of Yud Kei Vav Kei? Besides being Midas HaRachman, the attribute of mercy, it represents God being infinite. Hoya Hoveviyah. God was, is, and is in the future. He's infinite. So the Maral of Prague explains that every appellation of God that God shared with us, how he could be identified, always has relevance to something which he relates to. Rachmim, mercy, justice, his power, shakai, shokochodai. What does that mean? God said, let it be. It could have gone forever. God reigned in on it. As overpowering the power was, he controls that power. It's always something else. So which appellation of God indicates he stands independent of anything? Only Yud Kei Vav Kei. God is independent. What's the difference between a slave and a free man? A slave is controlled by the master. The master dictates his existence. A free man is independent. So why was the name Yud Kei Vav Kei the appellation to be used to communicate them that they're going to be redeemed? Because just as Yud Kei Vav Kei, it stands free of anything, it's not dependent on anything. As free man, you're not going to be dependent on anyone. You'll be totally independent. That's the Ben Chorin. You'll be Bnei Chorin. You're going to be free men. You're no longer going to be under anybody's dominance. Nobody will dominate you. You're not going to be reliant on anybody, on any mortal. You're going to be free. That's the Maral of Prague. So the Geula, on the ultimate level, we speak about redemption, when it comes through Yud Kei Vav Kei. Not only that, it's an indication that you're going to reflect that characteristic of God. Just as God is not dependent, is spiritual, your essence is a spiritual essence. You're physical people, but your significance is spiritual. You're not bound by physical criteria. You're not bound by that. You supersede nature. That's the Maral of Prague. So we see something interesting. What was the original intention of creation? God says to the angels, this heavenly retinue, Nasa Odom b'tzalmenu u'b'dmusenu. Let us make man in our image and our form. But one of the 13 tenets of Jewish belief is God has no form. God has no image. So what is the image and form of God? So the Seforno explains, we're speaking about intellect and power of choice. Just as God has intellect, it's divine intellect, and God does as he chooses to do, we're going to create a being that has intellect and he has power to choose to dictate his own life. That is the human being. That is the Odom. Nasa Odom. What is this being called? He's called Odom. Odom is a being that has control over his being, and he's not dictated. Now, but he was told, you could eat of every tree of the garden, except of the Eitz Hadas, which is Tov Ra, which has the fruit which is good and evil. What is evil? Right at this moment, you're a pure being. You have no relevance to evil. Of course, you have the ability to eat of the fruit if you choose to do so, but there's nothing drawing you there. There's nothing compelling you to go there. There's no inner desire to go there. It's like a person. Nobody has a desire to put his hand into a fire. But of course, he has the ability, if he chooses to, he can put his hand in the fire. But anybody who's of sane status is not going to put his hand in the fire, not understanding what the fire will do to him. Adam, before he ate of the tree of knowledge, he understood good, this fruit represents good and evil. But he himself, he had nothing compelling him to eat that fruit whatsoever. There was no desire to eat the fruit. What happens? So what was the human being? The human being reflected every aspect of God. Just as nobody compels God, nobody compels the Odom. So what being is able to have a relation with God? Only a being who's Odom. He has to have the characteristics and the profile of Odom. But that's when? That's pre-sin. Post-sin. He eats of the tree of knowledge, Tov Ra. Now he ingests this addictive evil. Now he's no longer in control of himself. Because now he has an addiction. He's drawn to evil. That means there's something driving you and compelling you to do acts which are contrary to God's will. This is no longer the original Odom. The profile of Odom is independent. He's not compelled to do. He's totally independent. Here, his connection to evil is drawing him away from God. He's no longer in full control. This is no longer Odom. He's lost the characteristic of Odom. He can no longer have that special relation with God. So what happens? But God created existence for Odom. So God has to find a replacement. When did the ascent, or did it begin evolving to create a new Odom? It was Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu was the founding father of the people that assumed the status of Odom, as it's based on a verse in Yechezkel, Atem kriyim Hodom v'lohem lo kriyim Odom. Your status is Odom. The status of nations of the world is not Odom. That has nothing to do with human being. Of course, they're humans, they have intellect, but we're speaking about what is the profile of Odom. That nothing compels you to do the wrong thing. That's Odom. You have to have a moment to be able to be totally independent of any influence, negative influence. And always to see it correctly. Not to be compelled. When is that? The moment the child is cast out of the womb of his mother, he's evil, he's compelled, he's already subject to the influence of the evil inclination. We all have evil inclinations. The Gemara tells us that when Rabbi Alexandri would finish the Amidah, he would say a special tefillah, prayer. Ritzoneinu lasus ritzoncho. Our will is to do your will. So why don't we do your will? Sor shebi isa ma'akiv. It's the yeast in the dough which doesn't allow it. So we're all subject to Yetzer Hara. We all have the evil inclination. So why are we Odom? Why are they not Odom? We're B'nai Chorin. We find when Hashem gave us the Torah at Sinai, what does it say? He gave us the Luchos Evan, the stone tablets. What was on the stone tablets? We had the Aser Sadibros, the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments were Chorus ala Luchos. Choros means they were etched, they were engraved on the tablets. So the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos, Al tikre chorus el cherus. The letters of freedom and chorus are the same letters. The vowels are only different. It should not be read chorus but cherus. Eilocha ben chored el mishosik b'Torah. Who is the true free man? The one who engages in Torah study. That's freedom. When the Jew engages in Torah study, then you're free of the evil inclination. You're free. I've created the evil inclination. But what's the antidote to the inclination? The study of Torah. So the Jew has the ability, he has the mechanism to reassert himself and reestablish himself, to assume the profile of Adam, to be unaffected. He's not compelled to do anything contrary to God's will. But what is the antidote? It's true, you have an evil inclination, but you have the antidote. You just have to partake of the antidote. That's the Torah itself. Therefore, that's why you're Adam. At Sinai, we became Adam. We established ourselves as that. And if not for the sin of Chet Egel, we would have not been subject to the Yetzer Hara. It's only because we failed with the Egel, which was idolatry, at whatever level we failed, we again became subject to his influence. But we still have the antidote. And that's why it's the ultimate lekach tov. Lekach tov nosati lachem. Why did God create this world? A being that reflects his characteristic. He's not compelled. God is not compelled. The Jew is not compelled. How could the Jew not be compelled? We're all subject to the evil inclination. Because he gave us the mechanism, the lekach tov, which is the ultimate. This surpasses what angels have. This surpasses everything. Because the only key to the world to come is the Torah itself. Because that's the only way you could gain full freedom, and that's the true Geula. So Egypt was the beginning. It was a Geula. It was a redemption. But that redemption was just the beginning of the process. We were at the 49th level, Nemta Sharei Tuma. When did we reach the pinnacle of our spirituality? That we were in a position that we were extricated from that influence. That was Sinai. That was the 50th day. Hashem says, now you're ready to take the antidote. Now you have the capacity to take the antidote. Now you have Choros ala Luchos. Now you've been a Chorim. So now, that's why it's the ultimate lekach tov. Said, Mishnah tells in Pirkei Avos, 10 people, Yoshvim v'lomdin Torah, Shechina imohim. The divine presence is with them. What about 5 people? Yoshvim v'lomdin Torah, they sit and study Torah, the divine presence is with them. What about 3? Shechina imohim, the divine presence is with them. What about 2? Yoshvim v'lomdin Shechina imohim. What about 1? And for each grouping, there's a verse which is quoted by the Mishnah. So if Shechina is imohim, even regarding 1, so what does 10 have over 1? Every grouping, the divine presence is with them. So that the Maral explains in Pirkei Avos. Of course, the Shechina is there, but it's a different intensity of divine presence. It's a different level. I mean, you have a person studies Torah, divine presence is the same as the Holy of Holies. The Shechina, the divine presence in the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies, was another dimension of divine presence, another presence. At the burning bush, it was another presence. At Sinai, it was another presence. So, 10 Yoshim v'lom Torah Shechina imohim. But why then? What about when you put on tefillin? Is the Shechina with you? Shechina is not with you. The divine presence is not with you. It says this, if you're sitting and studying Torah, 10 people, 5 people, 3, 2, or 1, Yoshim v'lom Torah Shechina imohim. Why then? The answer is very simple, as we're saying. Because when does God's presence associate with yourself? If you assume the profile of Adam. If you're Adam, when are you Adam? When you're not under the influence of the evil inclination. So since when you're engaging in Torah study, it's Barasi, it's a Barasa Torah Tavlin, the evil inclination is dispelled, is removed from you. So now you're the Adam. I created the existence for the Adam. Adam reflects the characteristics of God, being totally independent. As God is independent, the Adam is independent. Now that we're on common ground, now I have relevance to you. That's why it's only in this context is the divine presence associated with the 10, 5, 3, or 1, or 2, or 1, for that reason. Interesting medrash. Loma nimshel Torah lemotor. Why is Torah compared to rain? Motor is rain. Loma ma motor mishachekes avonim. When it rains, the rain causes stone to dissolve. Is able to dissolve stone. Wears away the stone. The water continuously flowing, so rain beats on the stone, it wears it away. Shenemar, as it says, a verse in the Yov, avonim shochku mayim. Stones are dissolved through water. Af Torah b'shachekes leiv ha'evan. The Torah grinds away the stone heart. It causes the stone heart to dissolve. V'zeh she'omer Rabbi Sein Zechron Livrocha in evan hu. If your heart is like stone, nimuach, it will melt through the study of Torah. V'im barzel hu. And if the Yetzer Hara has you entombed, like entombed in iron, mispotzetz, it will burst. Lekach ein tov le'odam ki l'homis atzmo divrei Torah. So if a person is entombed in a lead tomb or in a stone casket, how do you break out of that? So therefore, ein tov le'odam ki l'homis atzmo divrei. You have to actually be fully invested in Torah. Everything else has to be negated. You know, the Chofetz Chaim writes in one location, the Chovos HaLevavos writes that the greatest enemy that exists in existence for a human being is his evil inclination. One has no greater enemy. Why? It's 24/7, 365 days a year, every moment that you live from the moment you're born till you die. He's alert, engaging, strategizing to ensnare you, to destroy you. So he says something interesting. You have two enemies, and they enter in battle many times. And every time, one enemy loses the battle. After you lose 5 times, and the other one beats you, and he beats you to a pulp. What do? You give up and go away. If you're not destroyed, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, as many times as you beat him, he's always back with another approach. Never will leave you go. Never. Never gives up. He always believes he has the ability to ensnare you. That's it. It's continuous. So what happens? You say, I'll study Torah 15 hours a day. Okay? So you study Torah 15 hours a day. And you could study more. You have the energy to do more. You have sufficient means that you don't have to take out time to go work or to do other things. I'll take it easy. Not that you need that time for relaxation, but you realize, I'll only wear my bulletproof vest only so many hours, but you realize, but if the enemy is there and you're not wearing the protective armor, God forbid, he could kill you. So how do you? So 15 hours a day is enough. But you live 24 hours a day. You need the protection 24 hours a day. So if we're saying that if it's stone, it will be melted, and if it's iron, it will burst. So what do you need? Therefore he says, Ein tov l'odem ki l'homas atz divrei Torah v'lasik bo tomid yom v'laylo. Every available moment you have to be fully invested. And if you're not, then you're vulnerable. Because he's waiting for you. He's waiting for you to take off that vest. That impregnable vest. Because he knows he could actually bring about a mortal wound. You never know. You have to engage in Torah study day and night, unceasingly. Meaning, doesn't mean you shouldn't sleep. You have to sleep, you have to eat, you have to take out time. But those are necessities. A human being has needs. So as long as it's something which is productive and constructive, it's fine. But what about it's wasteful? It's wasteful, then it's a problem. Therefore, every available moment, day and night, you have to be engaged. But what am I supposed to do? So a person says, he's in the trench, in the bunker, being protected. I need some fresh air. Do you want to live? No problem. Go get yourself fresh air. You're not going to breathe another breath after that, after you put your head out in the line of fire. So it's insanity. If you value your life, you're not going to survive. The same thing. But who understands this? The person who has the orientation, the capacity to understand, who even appreciates what the Yetzer Hara is. Who appreciates that? You have to understand what the enemy is. It's like a person who's trained in infectious diseases. And he understands what the capability of bacteria festering. And if it's not totally eradicated, it will overtake your life and destroy your system. But what is the person who's totally out of touch with this? And if it's not sterilized, and it's not a sterile environment, it's not the end of the world. It's not going to kill me. Yeah, that's ignorance. It will kill you. So again, identical in the spiritual realm, to have an appreciation as Lahavdil, the infectious disease doctor, who understands what it means, what that bacteria is, or what that infection is, that if it's not controlled and totally eradicated, you will be destroyed, and if your immune system is compromised, you will not live beyond a certain point. He will take every precaution to protect that system, that it should not be vulnerable to whatever these forces which get penetrated. No less, even more serious in the spiritual realm. Why is Torah compared to rain? Rain is mishachekes es even. It dissolves stone. If it's iron, it causes it to burst. That's Torah. This is the antidote. That's the spiritual antidote. So, do you have a better lekach tov? It's a miracle. It's miracle armor. Just now, in the war in Gaza, they have a tank which repels any missile that comes, but you should have few of them, where it creates a force around the tank that anything shot at the tank, it's repelled. And this force is continuously. As the tank goes, it's an invisible force which engulfs the total tank. You understand? And it's being generated continuously. When you study Torah, the force is continuously being generated. You're in this protective spiritual environment. The evil inclination can't even approach it. He's vanquished, he's vaporized. Even nimuach. Barzel is mispotzates. That's what happens. The person says, I toiled in Torah, I did not come upon its truth. Al tamein. Don't believe that person. Why? Because if you truly toiled sufficiently, you would have come upon the truth of Torah. That you did not, that's an indication you did not toil sufficiently. It's the antidote if you toil sufficiently. Now, what's interesting, what does it mean? Every day we say in Ovolet Zion that God should open our hearts to Torah. The heart is opened with what? With Torah. And once the heart is opened, you should put in our hearts your love and your reverence. What opens the heart? What is the heart? The heart is the feelings. The heart has the ability to sense many things. If the heart is a heart of stone, you know what it senses? Only physical. It only has a sense for the physical, for desire, for lust. But the true ability of the heart of flesh, which is going to happen at the end of time, I will circumcise the foreskin of your hearts and the hearts of your sons. And the heart will naturally yearn and be drawn to spirituality. So therefore, that's the heart. Psachli beinu b'soroso. Open our hearts with your Torah. V'sein b'libeinu avosi viroso. And put in our hearts your love. Because once the stone is dissolved and the metal iron cover is removed, then the heart functions as a heart. It's a healthy heart. A healthy heart senses many things, which the heart that's blocked doesn't sense all those things. because there's blockage. But that's exactly what we're talking about over here. He says, what is the meaning of Kishem Hashem Ekra Chovah Godol Elokeinu? When I call the name of God, should you give greatness to God? We're equating the engagement in Torah study like dew and rain. You're studying for the sake of studying. Why am I studying? Shem Hashem Ekro. It's purely for God's glory. No self-interest. Pirush likros betoroso shishmo yisborach. Kedei sheyiten godel lelokeinu. It's purely only to extol God. V'zu tikra Torah lishmo. Legadel uleforshim kvodo. It's not because I'm interested in my self-glory. I should be known as proficient in the Torah. I study the Torah purely for the sake of the Torah. Because through the Torah, it generates a level of holiness in existence that humanity has an appreciation for what God is. It dispels the darkness. And once there's light, everybody's affected by the light. I remember many years ago, I was sitting with Rav Steinman. He should live and be well. He's over 100 years old. And he's going soon to celebrate his 101st birthday. So a few years ago, I was sitting with him, more than a few years, maybe 10 years ago, and I said to him, I said, you know, in Lakewood Yeshiva, the people who are sitting there for 40, 45 years and studying. That's what I said to him. He says to me, and he smiles, he says, you know, in the Ponovich Kollel, the people who are over 90 years old, and they've been studying all their lives, and they're still studying. You understand? I mean, you study. We're not talking about people who are known. They're not even known to the world. They're known in their own little small circles, who they are. There's nothing they don't know. What are you studying? You know it all. You barely have the subsistence to continue. What are you studying? The answer is purely for God's glory. That's called Torah Lishma. As much as I know, there's more to know. That's the responsibility of a Jew. The times you have to interrupt, but if those times don't present themselves, then you don't interrupt. And that's what it says. You know, a person has a choice. You can either be Yisachar, you can be a Zvulun. Everybody has a choice. You want to be a Zvulun. You know why I work? I want to make money. But why do you want to make money? Because in Kemach ain't Torah. Right? You can't live. You have to have the means. So why are you working? What do you have to be in Forbes number 6? Why? Because you want to be Zvulun. You want to be the Zvulun of history. Is that why you want to earn that kind of money? You know something? The whole world will be studying and studying, sitting and learning. Evidently, you must have some other interest. It's not to be the Zvulun. So how many people want to be the Zvulun? That's why they're not the Yisachar. If you want to be the Zvulun to support the Yisachar, then you will have the effect of Torah study. Then the evil inclination will be at bay. Because every moment of your investment is for the sake of the Yisachar. I mean, how could I rejoice when I go out? I have the enemy lurking over my shoulder. The answer is no. If your intent is to go out to be able to support Yisachar, you rejoice, you secure, Hashem will watch over you. You don't have anything to worry about. You tell me that's the majority of people who go and they spend 16 hours a day at the office because they want to be the ultimate Yisvulin. No, we have to ask that question before Rosh Hashanah and before Yom Kippur. We have to introspect. Dirsha Hashem be motzo. Hashem should give all of us that level of clarity to internalize the reality of the answer, to come upon the truth of that answer. And hopefully, even the ones who haven't had that, maybe you could always change and take that level of success and invest it properly into the Yisachar. And if every Zvulun would invest in the Yisachar, you realize Mashiach will be here, not tomorrow, today. The world will be a different world. Klal Yisrael will be a different world. Havu Godel Elokeinu. When you study Torah, it has to be Lishma. It's not, you should know who I am, but rather you should know who God is. And that's what it's about. And that's what we have to strive for.